Neurofatigue after a stroke is not like regular fatigue. It can make you feel like you're swimming through concrete or that you feel utterly exhausted all of the time. Today, let's talk about why it happens, how it's different from regular fatigue, and what you can do about it. What is neurofatigue? It is a next level fatigue that happens after someone experiences a neurological injury like a stroke. It can make you feel like you're swimming through concrete or jello, or perhaps that your limbs have been injected with concrete, and it can make you feel completely exhausted all of the time, and maybe that you need to nap throughout the day to even feel like you have enough energy to take a shower. Why does neurofatigue happen after a stroke? The short answer is because the brain is trying to heal. But the longer answer is because in addition to the brain trying to heal, it's also trying to perform all of the necessary maintenance functions that our body needs to keep us up, alive, and running, like regulating our temperature, making sure that we are digesting our food and that we're breathing. So it takes a lot of energy for the brain to keep us maintained, as well as trying to heal, to reorganize, to remake connections. That energy has to come from somewhere, and often it comes in the form of sleep. When we think about the nature of sleep, we know that it helps us to recover from the day's events. And so typically after a stroke, after a neurological injury, the brain needs a lot of sleep and rest to get energy to heal and to perform those maintenance functions. How is neurofatigue different from regular fatigue? Regular fatigue is usually caused by some acute event, meaning something that's happened in the moment or maybe in the past 24 hours. And that could be something like pulling an all-nighter, staying up later than you should have, getting a lot of physical activity during the day, or maybe you have a baby keeping you up at night. Regular fatigue usually gets better after resting, taking naps, getting a good night's sleep, or taking rest breaks throughout the day. Neurofatigue, on the other hand, may not get better with rest or sleep, because neurofatigue is not just about sleepiness. It can cause you to feel completely overwhelmed. It can make you feel like your limbs are really heavy. It can be compounded by weakness, spasticity, and pain. And it may also cause you to have feelings of anxiety or guilt for not doing as much as you used to do before your stroke. This can cause misunderstanding by others because neurofatigue is an invisible disability, meaning that it's not something that you can see, like if someone has a broken bone with a cast or even weakness of the affected side. So when someone can't see what's causing you to feel like you can't do as much as you did before, they may end up calling you things like lazy even when you're not. How long does neurofatigue last? Just like every other aspect of stroke recovery, neurofatigue is no different. It just depends. It's going to be different for every survivor. For some, they may see improvement in weeks or months after their stroke. For some, they won't start seeing improvement until years down the road. And still for others, it's going to be a lifelong journey of recovery. And I know that's not necessarily what anybody wants to hear, the "it depends" answer, but that is the truth. And for those experiencing it, especially over the long haul, finding ways to manage and cope with it is the most important thing you can do. You're not lazy, you're healing. Some of my best tips to help you cope with neurofatigue include to give yourself some grace. Try to extend the same level of kindness that you would to someone else in the same situation to yourself, because you may still be healing even years after a stroke happens. Neurological injuries are not the same as, say, a broken bone. There is no one linear trajectory or specific timeline in which stroke recovery happens. They can take much longer to heal from. So even if you are years out and you are still coping with neurofatigue, try to be kind to yourself if you can't get things done as much as you did before or as quickly as family and friends. Tips to manage neurofatigue. My go-to is always the 4 P's of energy conservation, which are position, pace, prioritize, and plan. So let's break each of those down. When we talk about positioning, what I mean by that is think about what uses more energy during the day, sitting or standing. Well, standing usually takes more energy. So let's say, for example, that you are making a meal for yourself. Maybe you're cutting up vegetables. Instead of standing to cut at maybe your kitchen counter, try sitting at your dining room table and cutting. You're gonna use less energy that way and conserve it for something else that you might wanna do later. And when I say pace, I mean pace out your activities. So let's say, for example, that you need to get the laundry done. Well, luckily there are some built-in rest breaks there. So you put your clothes in the washer, you have some amount of time, then you have to put them in the dryer, then you have to take them, fold them, and put them away. But if we break that down and think about really pacing it out, you may put them in the washer and then load them in the dryer. But guess what? No one is gonna die if you don't get those clothes out of the dryer, folded, and put away immediately. When I talk about prioritizing, I mean just that. Think about the things that you need to get done and prioritize them from most important to least important. So for example, let's say that you need to go out to a doctor's appointment, you need to go grocery shopping, you need to do laundry, and you need to do the dishes. So if we break that down, maybe going to the doctor's appointment and getting groceries for the week are the two most important things you need to do that day. Well, that's probably gonna use up a good amount of your energy. So you go out to your doctor's appointment, and then maybe because you're already out, you go ahead and get the grocery shopping done. When you get home, you may be too tired to do anything else, so you put off the other tasks until the next day, and that's perfectly fine. And when we talk about planning, I've already included something in the previous example. Did you catch it? If you were already going out for your doctor's appointment and you also needed to go grocery shopping, well, if you're already gonna be out of the house, maybe best to go ahead and get your grocery shopping out of the way too. That way you don't have to make 2 trips out of the house on 2 separate days. That can be exhausting. So recognize that you may need a day to recover from doing 2 things out in one day, but if you plan accordingly, you prioritize, you can get those things done out of the house in one day and then have the rest of the week to catch up on things around the house. Now, outside of the 4 P's of energy conservation, there are a few other tips that I want to mention. And one is a really difficult one to swallow, and that is asking people for help. If there are things that you need to get done and you just cannot muster up the energy, maybe ask your spouse or your children, a parent, a friend, or another loved one in your life if they can help you out. It can be really hard to do, especially if you are a very independent person and that you're stubborn and you want to do things on your own, but sometimes there's no harm in asking for a little bit of help. Another thing that you can try is setting up boundaries for yourself. Maybe you realize that getting out and trying to appease friends by going out to eat, or maybe just going and hanging out multiple times a week is just too much for you. You have to set boundaries for yourself and say, okay, maybe going out twice a week is just too much for me. Maybe I'll limit it to 1 time, or maybe even once every 2 weeks. You have to figure out what's gonna work best for you and stick to those boundaries. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Make sure that if someone in your life does not understand your neurofatigue, share this video with them. Help them to understand what you're going through. And leave me a comment and let me know, what has your experience been like with neurofatigue? Have you had someone call you lazy? And what was your response to that? If you found this video helpful, please make sure to leave it a like. And if you're new here, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notifications for when I post new videos. Post-Stroke is a nonprofit, and you can help us keep our content free, either by giving us a super thanks by clicking in the YouTube bar below, by giving us a one-time donation via PayPal, or by becoming a Patreon member, where in exchange for a monthly donation, you get access to cool perks like social media shoutouts, behind the scenes footage, and even YouTube shoutouts, of which I have some today. And a special thank you to Heather G in our Empowerer tier. We can't do what we do without you all. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.